Hi, and welcome to this installment of From the Syllabus. I'm Lee Hall, and I'm an Associate Professor of Literacy Studies at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Today I'm going to be sharing one of my assignments with you that I use in a qualitative research methods class, and these are called expert projects. All right, so what are the purpose of the expert projects? So I teach an introductory qualitative research and methods class to doctoral students in the School of Education. And what I struggled with early on with the class was that there were a lot of topics that need to be covered. And you can see some of these listed here, right? We're covering a lot of the basics of doing qualitative research. We're talking about how do you establish relationships with people? How do you conduct observations? How do you take field notes? How do you interview? How do you design interview questions? How do you do coding? We had to do some basic, very basic work on coding. How do you write things up, right? So this is just a sampling of the topics, but in about a 15-week course, right, you can't go into any of these topics in any great detail. So I might get one, at best 2 weeks on any single topic. So what I found early on was that, the course is going to give a lot of breadth in terms of topics covered, but very little depth in terms of what students are going to get to know about it. So I designed the expert projects to address this issue, and the idea is that in the expert project, students are going to be allowed to explore a particular aspect of the course in greater depth, right? So they're going to be able to decide that they're really interested, for example, in interviewing, and they're going to be able to really engage with that topic over the course of the semester and explore it in greater detail. So what were the requirements? We really started the expert project on day one. By the second week of the semester, students had, were sort of set in terms of who they were going to be working with and what topic they were going to be doing. And so here are the basic requirements, and I took this straight out of the syllabus. I'm going to actually start down here, first of all. This idea that we had project teams, and the project teams I said could contain 2 to 3 people. Now, I'm talking to you about this having done it for 2 semesters now. I think the first semester I let it be 4 or 5 people, and I found that to just be too big. So scaled it back down to 2 to 3 people. I think most teams had 3 people, and then this the last time I did it, and that seemed to be a really good balance. I did offer up the opportunity for people to work alone if they really wanted to. It's just something that I wanted to make available to them to be able to decide on their own, but nobody picked that option. So we have project teams of 2 to 3 people, and they were asked to select a topic and get it approved. Now, their topic had to align with what we were studying in class, and it had to be presented when we were studying it in class. So if they were talking about interviewing, they had to give their presentation on a day in class when we were going to be talking about interviewing. I didn't want them giving it on a day in class when we were talking about ethics. And I did this for 2 reasons. The first time I did this project, I let students give their presentation whenever they wanted, right? So if they were doing interviewing, they might do it before, the week of, or even after we had discussed interviewing in class. And what I found is that just really didn't work well for the flow of the class. Students they talked about it before, we had done the readings, and of course the class was less prepared in terms of being able to engage with the presenters and ask thoughtful questions. If they did it after I gave the presentation, after we had done it in class and I had given a presentation, then the group found that they really struggled to add anything new to what I had said. So I expect them to present the week that we're talking about it in class, and I let them go first. They usually open up the class. It's a 3-hour class, and I give them the first 45, even up to an hour if it seems relevant block of time. And then I will follow up with some additional points to consider, go a little bit more in depth, stretch out what they've said a little bit. I usually get the expert projects, a couple days in advance, so I can figure out, sort of tweak any sort of lecture or discussion points that I want to follow up on based on what I see the group is going to be doing. So they've got the syllabus, they can see the topics. They select a topic, they get it approved, and then from there I ask them to create an annotated bibliography of 10 readings associated with the topic. It can be any 10 readings, it could be 10 books, it could be 10 articles, anything that you can think of, as long as it's relevant to the topic that they've selected, then I'm fine with it. I asked them to post their annotated bibliography on the course wiki. We maintain a wiki for our class, and so I have a page on the wiki that says expert projects, and we make sub pages right per for each group, and then all of the information is collected there. In this way, there's no hard copies typically being distributed in my class for the expert project. It stays online, and students can access all the information even after the course is over, which to me makes it much more relevant and authentic. Then they are expected to provide a 30-minute session going over what they've learned in class, and they can do that however they wish. And most students do some sort of lecture, some type of interactive component, and maybe show some videos. And they usually collect very, very excellent resources and structure these sessions very well. I have been starting to extend that if groups really want to present for 45 minutes because the sessions are so typically very well done and very well thought out. I'm fine. I think you can do it easily, somewhere between 30 and 45-minute presentation, and then 15 minutes for myself or for anybody in the audience to ask questions. And then of course I ask them to take the materials that they have, their presentation materials, and to put them on the course wiki with their annotated bibliography as well. Usually the presentation materials contain very relevant information that people want to be able to gain access to after the class is over. And I will not grade their presentation or give them feedback on their presentation until the annotated bibliography and the presentation materials have been posted on the wiki. All right, so having done this for a couple of semesters, here are some things that I can tell you that I've seen with the projects. And first, I want to say I am incredibly pleased with these projects. I would absolutely continue doing these projects. You can obviously modify these projects. It doesn't have to be in a qualitative research methods class. This concept of an expert project could fit into any class, and I think it works really well in an introductory class. But students really had a very an easy time. They self-selected into their own groups and identified topics all on their own. They really needed very little help or guidance. I am open to them proposing topics that are not on a syllabus, but nobody seems to be open. Nobody seems to do that. Nobody comes to me with topics, and I'm guessing it's because it's an introductory class and they're not quite sure yet on what they would like to know that's not on the syllabus. I've never had any problems with groups collaborating together effectively. They've always been able to do that very well, and I have found most of the presentations to be very highly creative and very useful, with a tremendous amount of hands-on experience, extremely practical knowledge that they share with their peers. And the other thing that I think is very important to highlight too is that, when students were giving these presentations, they're also able to address knowledge gaps, right? We call it the expert project, but you're not really going to be an expert, but you're going to be more further along on the continuum, right? So they were able, and they were very comfortable with acknowledging their own limitations in terms of their knowledge and questions they had and issues that came up for them, and bringing those into the presentation to either ask me directly to help them understand or to discuss further with the class as a whole. And so that was really nice. And so I would encourage you, if you do something like this, think of the word expert, but think of it more as not that you're going to expect that they know every little nuance about it, but that they're really diving in and getting into the subject more deeply, because I really appreciate that they felt comfortable being open about where their knowledge was limited and questions that they had that they wanted to bring to their presentation for further discussion. It made the presentations, just that much better. And then I'll leave you with some final thoughts. I do store the projects on a class wiki via Wikispaces, and the mistake that I made here is I have a class wiki for class 1, the first class that I taught, and then I have a separate one. And what I would suggest doing, what I would do from this point on, is create one expert project page and have all the classes and subsequent classes add to them, so that you're collecting these projects over time. And then the annotated bibliography is building up, the resources that you have in relation to the topics that are being explored are building up, and each class can benefit from the ones that came before them. I don't have any issues or concerns about groups. The way that letting them pick who they want to work with, letting them structure themselves, it all worked very well, and I let them decide how they were going to split up the work, right? So I didn't require, for example, that everybody present on the day of the presentation, right? You could have one person in the group present, you could have all 3 people present, it didn't matter to me. what I communicate to the group is, you need to decide what you think is an equitable way to distribute the workload. And unless I hear from you otherwise, I'm assuming that you've done that and it's gone well. So that's how I do it. You can decide how you want to do it. And overall, the feedback on this is that it's extremely relevant. It's a very useful project. It's a great way to spend time. It adds a great deal of information to the class overall. So if you have any questions, you can reach me at one of the 2 email addresses below, and you can also read more about the work that I'm doing in my class with the Expert Project and other projects similar to it on my blog, which is leahall.wordpress.com.